The popular belief that 90% of our brain lies dormant is a tantalizing one. It suggests a vast reservoir of untapped potential waiting to be unlocked, perhaps even granting extraordinary abilities like psychokinesis or extrasensory perception. This idea has become a staple of science fiction and the self-help industry. The myth's origins are not rooted in neuroscience, but in a misinterpretation of early 20th century psychology. Harvard psychologist William James once spoke of people using only a fraction of their latent mental ability, a plausible claim about potential. This nuanced idea was later twisted into a precise, false percentage by the self-help movement. In 1936, writer Lowell Thomas cemented the myth in the foreword to Dale Carnegie's immensely popular book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, by falsely attributing the 10% figure to James. Modern science, however, tells a different story. Brain imaging technologies like functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, and positron emission tomography, PET scans, show that we use virtually 100% of our brain. Different regions become more active depending on the task, but no area is ever completely silent, even during sleep. From an evolutionary standpoint, a largely unused brain makes no sense. The brain accounts for only about 2% of our body weight, but consumes a staggering 20% of our energy. Natural selection would not have favored such a metabolically expensive and inefficient organ. Furthermore, studies of brain damage confirm that injury to almost any area of the brain results in significant functional loss, proving that no part is merely waiting to be used. Almost every student has seen the classic tongue map, a diagram showing that we taste sweetness at the tip, saltiness and sourness on the sides, and bitterness at the back. This neat categorization of our sense of taste is a simple and memorable concept, which helps explain its longevity in classrooms and textbooks. This enduring myth originated from a fundamental misinterpretation of a 1901 German scientific paper, Zur Psychophysics des Geschmackssinnes, by David P. Hennig. Hennig's research showed that different parts of the tongue have slightly different thresholds for detecting tastes. For instance, the tip might be marginally more sensitive to sweet tastes. However, these were minor variations, not exclusive zones. In 1942, Harvard psychology professor Edwin G. Boring replotted Hennig's data in his book in a way that exaggerated these subtle differences, which was then misinterpreted by others as evidence for rigid taste zones. The myth was definitively disproven by researcher Virginia Collings in 1974, who confirmed Hennig's original finding that the differences in sensitivity are negligible. The scientific reality is that all taste buds, which are found in small bumps called papillae all over the tongue, are capable of detecting all 5 of the basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, savory. There are no exclusive regions. Taste is a far more complex sense than the map suggests, involving a holistic perception that combines signals from all parts of the tongue with crucial input from our sense of smell, as well as the food's texture and temperature. It is a common belief that the blood flowing through our veins is blue, and that it only turns red when it is exposed to oxygen upon leaving the body. This idea is powerfully reinforced by 2 everyday observations: the blue appearance of veins visible through our skin and the color coding convention used in medical and biology textbooks, where veins are colored blue and arteries are red for clarity. However, human blood is never blue. The color of blood is determined by hemoglobin, an iron-rich protein in our red blood cells. When hemoglobin is bound to oxygen, as it is in our arteries after leaving the lungs, it is a bright, vibrant red. After delivering oxygen to the body's tissues, the deoxygenated blood in our veins becomes a dark maroon red. The blue appearance of our veins is an optical illusion. When light hits our skin, different colors or wavelengths are absorbed and scattered differently. Red light is absorbed more readily by our skin and fat tissue, while blue light is scattered back to our eyes more effectively. This scattering effect makes the dark red blood in our veins appear blue to our perception. The term blue-blooded for aristocracy is thought to have originated from a similar observation.
pale-skinned nobles who did not work in the sun had more visibly blue veins than tanned commoners.
The sugar high is a phenomenon most parents claim to have witnessed. After consuming cake, candy, or soda, children become uncontrollably energetic and hyperactive. This belief is so widespread that sugary foods are often blamed for bad behavior at parties and holidays. The myth can be traced back to the 1970s and the popularity of the Feingold diet, which was created by an allergist to eliminate food additives like artificial colors and flavors from children's diets to reduce hyperactivity. Although the original diet did not target sugar, it was soon incorrectly lumped in with other bad additives in the public consciousness. The idea persists largely due to confirmation bias. Events where children consume a lot of sugar, such as birthday parties or Halloween, are also inherently exciting and stimulating. Parents expect to see a sugar rush, and they interpret the children's excitement as a direct result of the sweets, confusing correlation with causation. In reality, numerous double-blind, placebo-controlled studies have systematically debunked the link between sugar and hyperactivity. A meta-analysis of these studies concluded that sugar does not affect the behavior or cognitive performance of children. One particularly revealing study illustrated the power of parental expectation. Mothers were told their children had consumed a sugary drink when it was actually sugar-free. The mothers subsequently rated their children's behavior as significantly more hyperactive. While a diet high in sugar is linked to other health concerns like tooth decay and obesity, it is not the cause of hyperactivity. For generations, the annoying sound of knuckle cracking has been met with the stern warning that the habit will lead to arthritis later in life. This is a classic old wives' tale, likely invented as a deterrent for a habit that many find irritating. The sharp popping sound gives the impression of bones grinding or joints being damaged, which lends a false sense of credibility to the myth. The sound of a knuckle cracking is not the sound of bones being harmed. It is a result of a phenomenon called cavitation. Our joints are lubricated by a substance called synovial fluid, which contains dissolved gases like nitrogen. When you stretch or bend a joint, you increase the volume within the joint capsule, which causes a rapid drop in pressure. This pressure drop allows the dissolved gases to form a bubble, and the pop is the sound of that bubble collapsing. Multiple medical studies have investigated the supposed link and have found no evidence that habitual knuckle cracking causes arthritis. The most famous, albeit anecdotal, piece of evidence comes from Dr. Donald Unger. For over 50 years, he diligently cracked the knuckles on his left hand at least twice a day while leaving his right hand uncracked as a control. The result? After half a century, there was no sign of arthritis in either hand and no discernible difference between them. While some studies suggest that chronic, forceful knuckle cracking may be associated with slightly weaker grip strength or hand swelling, it has no correlation with the development of arthritis. It is a piece of childhood folklore that has terrified generations. If you swallow your chewing gum, it will remain lodged in your stomach for 7 years. The origin of this myth is obscure, but it was almost certainly concocted by parents as a memorable and effective way to teach children not to swallow their gum. The fact that the gum base is indigestible provides a kernel of truth that makes the 7-year timeline seem plausible. While it is true that the human digestive system cannot break down the synthetic or natural rubber that forms the gum's base, the gum does not stay in the body for years. The digestive system is well equipped to handle indigestible materials. Just like fiber from vegetables or small seeds, the swallowed gum is simply moved along through the intestines by the normal muscular contractions of the digestive tract, a process called peristalsis, and is excreted in the stool within a few days. Swallowing a single piece of gum is harmless. The only time it could pose a risk is in very rare cases where a large mass of gum is swallowed, particularly by a small child, which could potentially lead it to an intestinal blockage.
The 5-second rule is a well-known piece of food hygiene folklore which states that if you pick up a piece of dropped food from the floor within 5 seconds, it is safe to eat because harmful bacteria have not had enough time to contaminate it. This urban legend has unclear origins, though some trace it back to a so-called Khan rule attributed to Genghis Khan, who supposedly declared at his banquets that any food dropped on the floor was still fit to eat because it had been prepared for him. In more modern times, the famous chef Julia Child may have helped popularize a relaxed attitude toward drop food when she nonchalantly picked up a drop pancake during an episode of her cooking show, remarking that if you are alone in the kitchen, no one will know. Scientific studies have repeatedly shown this rule to be false. Research from Rutgers University and others has demonstrated that bacteria can transfer to food almost instantaneously. The amount of contamination depends more on the moisture content of the food and the type of surface than on the length of time it is on the floor. Wet foods, like a slice of watermelon, pick up bacteria much more readily than dry foods, like a cracker. Interestingly, surfaces like carpet transfer fewer bacteria than smooth surfaces like tile or stainless steel because the fibrous texture of the carpet reduces the total surface area in contact with the food. While it is true that a longer contact time will result in more bacteria being transferred, the transfer begins in less than a second, making the 5-second window essentially meaningless from a safety perspective.
One of the most dramatic and enduring myths in the animal world is the story of the lemming. The legend holds that these small rodents are driven by a mysterious, instinctual urge to commit mass suicide by marching in unison off cliffs and into the sea, particularly when their population becomes too large. This powerful and disturbing image was not the result of careful scientific observation, but of cinematic fabrication. The myth was almost single-handedly created and popularized by the 1958 Walt Disney nature documentary White Wilderness. A 1983 investigation by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation revealed that the filmmakers, unable to capture such behavior in the wild, faked the entire sequence. The documentary was filmed in Alberta, Canada, a landlocked province where the species of lemming shown does not naturally live. The filmmakers purchased the lemmings from local Inuit children, transported them to a cliff overlooking a river, and then deliberately herded them off the edge to create the dramatic suicide footage. The scientific truth is far less dramatic, but equally interesting. Lemmings do not commit suicide. Their populations are subject to dramatic boom and bust cycles, with their numbers sometimes increasing tenfold in a single year under favorable conditions. When the population in an area becomes too dense and food becomes scarce, lemmings will disperse in large numbers to find new habitats. During these frantic mass migrations, some individuals may accidentally fall from cliffs or drown while attempting to cross rivers or fjords, but this is a tragic consequence of dispersal, not an act of intentional self-destruction. It is a common joke and a widely held belief that goldfish have a memory span of only a few seconds. This idea paints a picture of a creature living in a state of perpetual surprise, constantly rediscovering its small world. The myth likely originated from an unfair comparison of fish intelligence to human standards, and the seemingly monotonous, repetitive behavior of a fish confined to a small, unstimulating bowl. This misconception has been heavily reinforced by popular culture, most famously by the character Dory in the Pixar film Finding Nemo. However, scientific research has long since debunked this myth. Studies dating back to the 1950s and 1960s have shown that goldfish possess memories that can last for months, if not longer. They're capable of associative learning and can be trained to perform complex tasks. For example, researchers have successfully taught goldfish to associate a specific sound with feeding time, and the fish will return to the feeding spot months after being released into the wild upon hearing the sound. Other studies have demonstrated that goldfish can navigate mazes, learn to press a lever to release food, and even distinguish between different human faces. A study at Oxford University even trained goldfish to accurately estimate distances by swimming a specific length to receive a food reward, a task that even humans can find difficult. The idiom "blind as a bat" is so ingrained in our language that many people believe bats are completely without sight. This misconception arises from two of the bat's most notable characteristics: its nocturnal lifestyle and its remarkable ability to navigate using echolocation. The logical, but incorrect assumption was that if bats are so adept at seeing with sound in complete darkness, their eyes must be useless. In reality, no species of bat is blind. All bats can see, and their vision is well adapted to their environment. Most microbats, the smaller species that typically use echolocation to hunt insects, have eyes that are specialized for vision in low-light conditions, helping them navigate at dusk and dawn. They use a combination of their eyesight for long-range navigation and echolocation for fine detail detection of prey at close range. Megabats, such as fruit bats, do not echolocate at all and rely on their large, well-developed eyes and a keen sense of smell to find fruit and nectar. Some fruit bats can even see in the ultraviolet spectrum, which helps them identify ripe fruit. The idea that opposites attract is a cornerstone of romantic fiction. From classic fairy tales like Beauty and the Beast to modern romantic comedies, the narrative of two people with clashing personalities finding love is a powerful and enduring trope. The belief is appealing because it suggests that a partner can complete us by providing qualities and strengths that we lack, creating a balanced whole. Despite its prevalence in popular culture, decades of psychological and sociological research have shown that the opposite is true. In the real world, it is similarity, not opposition, that fuels attraction. This principle is known as assortative mating. Numerous studies, including a comprehensive meta-analysis of research spanning over a century, have found that people are overwhelmingly more likely to form relationships with those who share their core attitudes, values, religious beliefs, political leanings, and level of education. While personality traits show a weaker correlation, the tendency is still towards similarity rather than opposition. Research has also shown that perceived similarity, the belief that you are similar to someone, is an even more powerful predictor of attraction than actual similarity. While relationships between opposites do exist, they're the exception, not the rule. One of the most peculiar and specific scientific facts that circulates is the claim that a duck's quack, for some mysterious reason, does not produce an echo. This tidbit is often presented as an unexplainable quirk of physics and nature. The myth likely originated from a combination of environmental factors and the acoustic properties of the quack itself. Ducks typically live in open, natural environments like ponds and marshes, which lack the large, hard, flat surfaces, like cliffs or building walls, needed to produce a clear, distinct echo. Furthermore, the sound of a duck's quack is not a sharp, abrupt noise. It has a gradual onset and a fading ack at the end. This structure makes it difficult for the human ear to distinguish the end of the original sound from the beginning of its reflection, effectively masking the echo. Of course, a duck's quack obeys the laws of physics just like any other sound. This was definitively proven in the 2003 experiment by acousticians at the University of Salford in the UK. They recorded a duck named Daisy in two specialized rooms: an anechoic chamber designed to absorb all sound and eliminate echoes, and a reverberation chamber designed with hard surfaces to maximize them. The results were clear. In the reverberation chamber, the quack produced a distinct echo. The sound of a duck's quack does echo, it is just often too quiet or acoustically complex for us to easily hear it in a natural setting. The belief that sharks are immune to cancer is not just a piece of trivia, it is a dangerous piece of misinformation that has had severe real-world consequences. This myth fueled a multi-million-dollar industry based on selling shark cartilage as an alternative cancer treatment for humans. The myth was deliberately created and popularized in the 1990s, primarily through the 1992 book Sharks Don't Get Cancer by I. William Lane, who had a financial stake in a company that produced shark cartilage supplements.
The claim, amplified by a segment on the television news program 60 Minutes, was based on the flawed premise that since sharks have skeletons made of cartilage, and cartilage has properties that inhibit blood vessel growth, a process tumors need, sharks must be cancer-proof. This is entirely false. Scientists have known that sharks get cancer since at least 1908. Dozens of cases of both benign and malignant tumors have been documented in various shark species, including cancers of their own cartilage, chondromas. While sharks do possess remarkably robust immune systems and genes that are efficient at DNA repair, which may result in a lower incidence of cancer, they are by no means immune. The perpetuation of this myth has had a devastating impact on global shark populations, which have been overfished to supply a demand for a fraudulent and ineffective cure.
This old saying is often used metaphorically to suggest that a rare event is unlikely to happen again. However, when taken literally, it is a complete falsehood. The myth likely originated as a folk saying to offer comfort or express the improbability of a disaster repeating itself. Its persistence is a testament to the power of idiom over scientific fact. The reality is that lightning not only can, but frequently does strike the same place multiple times. Lightning is an electrical discharge seeking the path of least resistance to the ground. Tall, conductive, and isolated objects provide such a path. Consequently, structures like skyscrapers, radio towers, and mountain peaks are repeatedly struck. The Empire State Building in New York City, for instance, is struck an average of 25 to 100 times per year and was once used as a lightning laboratory for this very reason. The Willis Tower, formerly Sears Tower in Chicago, is another frequent target, with one storm in 2014 hitting it 10 times in a single night. NASA's extensive research confirms that lightning has no memory and will strike any favorable location repeatedly. A single thunderstorm can recharge and produce multiple strikes to the same object within minutes. A common belief, often shared by tour guides in old cathedrals, is that the panes of glass in medieval windows are thicker at the bottom because glass is an amorphous solid or a supercooled liquid that has slowly flowed downwards over centuries. This myth arises from observing the wavy, uneven thickness of antique glass and combining it with a partial understanding of the atomic structure of glass. Unlike crystalline solids, which have a neat, ordered atomic lattice, glass is an amorphous solid, meaning its atoms are arranged in a disordered, liquid-like state that has been frozen in place. This has led to the incorrect conclusion that it is still flowing, just imperceptibly slowly. However, at room temperature, glass is a true solid. Its atoms are locked in place and do not flow. The imperfections seen in old window panes are a relic of the manufacturing processes used at the time. Before the modern float glass method was invented in the 1950s, glass was made by blowing it into a large cylinder or spinning it into a flat disc, the crown glass process. Both methods produced sheets that were uneven in thickness, often with ripples and thicker edges. It was common practice for glaziers to install these panes with the thicker side at the bottom for greater stability. The glass has not moved since it was installed.
It is a classic urban legend. A penny dropped from the top of the Empire State Building could gain enough velocity to kill a person on the sidewalk below. This myth likely stems from a basic but incomplete understanding of gravity. The idea that an object falling from a great height will continue to accelerate indefinitely. This scenario ignores a crucial force: air resistance, or drag. As an object falls, the force of gravity pulls it down, but the force of air resistance pushes up against it. This upward force increases with speed. Eventually, the upward drag force becomes equal to the downward force of gravity, and the object stops accelerating. It continues to fall at a constant maximum speed, known as its terminal velocity. A penny, being light, about 2.5 grams, and flat, is not very aerodynamic. It flutters as it falls, maximizing air resistance. A penny reaches its terminal velocity after falling only about 50 feet, or 15 meters. Its terminal velocity is estimated to be between 25 and 113 kph. While being hit by an object moving at that speed would certainly sting,
A penny's tiny mass means it carries very little kinetic energy and is incapable of causing serious injury, let alone being lethal. In a vacuum, without air resistance, it would be a different story. But in our atmosphere, a falling penny is harmless.
We are warned from a young age about the danger of mixing electricity and water, leading to the widespread belief that water itself is an excellent conductor of electricity. This is a life-saving precaution, but it is based on a scientifically inaccurate premise. The myth arises because the water we encounter in our daily lives, tap water, bath water, pool water, rainwater, is indeed a good conductor. However, it is not the water itself that conducts the electricity. Pure distilled water is actually a very poor conductor of electricity. It is an excellent insulator. Electrical current is the flow of charged particles. Pure water is only very feebly ionized, meaning it contains very few free-moving ions to carry a current. The conductivity of everyday water comes from the impurities dissolved within it. Water is an excellent solvent and readily dissolves minerals, salts, and other substances from its environment. These dissolved substances, such as sodium, chloride, calcium, and magnesium, exist as charged ions in the water. It is these ions that carry the electrical current, turning the water into a conductive solution. The more impurities, the higher the conductivity.
A persistent fear surrounding microwave ovens is that they cook food using a dangerous form of radiation that makes the food itself radioactive and harmful to eat. This myth often stems from a general fear of the word radiation and a misunderstanding of the electromagnetic spectrum. The origin of this fear is linked to the confusion between different types of radiation. Microwave ovens use a form of electromagnetic radiation, but it is non-ionizing radiation. This is the same type of radiation used for radio and television signals, just at a different frequency. Non-ionizing radiation has enough energy to make molecules vibrate, but not enough to knock electrons out of atoms. Radioactivity, on the other hand, is associated with ionizing radiation, such as X-rays and gamma rays. Ionizing radiation has enough energy to alter atoms and damage DNA, which is what makes it dangerous. Microwaves do not have this capability. The way a microwave oven works is by causing polar molecules in food, primarily water, to rapidly rotate and vibrate. This vibration creates friction, which generates heat and cooks the food. The process does not alter the chemical or molecular structure of the food and does not leave any residual radiation behind. Once the microwave is turned off, the microwaves are gone. The food is heated, not made radioactive.
It is an intuitive and seemingly logical explanation for the seasons. Summer is hot because the Earth is closer to the sun, and winter is cold because it is farther away. This myth likely arose from a simple, everyday analogy. We know that the closer we are to a fire, the warmer we feel. Applying this logic to the Earth and Sun seems straightforward. Ancient cultures also developed mythological explanations for the seasons, such as the Greek myth of Persephone, whose annual descent into the underworld caused her mother, Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, to grieve, bringing about autumn and winter. The scientific truth is that the seasons are caused by the tilt of the Earth's axis, which is angled at approximately 23.5 degrees relative to its orbital plane. Earth's orbit is slightly elliptical, and in fact, for the northern hemisphere, the Earth is closest to the Sun, a point called perihelion, in early January, during the middle of winter. The axial tilt is the key factor. When a hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, it receives more direct sunlight for longer periods of the day. The sunlight is concentrated over a smaller area, leading to more effective heating and causing summer. When that hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, the sunlight strikes it at a more oblique angle, spreading the energy over a larger area and resulting in the shorter, colder days of winter. Images of astronauts floating weightlessly inside the International Space Station have created the powerful and widespread impression that there is no gravity in space.
This is often referred to as zero gravity. This misconception stems from our direct experience of gravity on Earth. We associate gravity with a strong downward pull and weight. Seeing astronauts float, seemingly free from this pull, leads to the logical but incorrect conclusion that gravity must be absent in their environment. In reality, gravity is everywhere in the universe. The ISS orbits Earth at an altitude of about 250 miles, or 400 kilometers. At that height, Earth's gravitational pull is still about 90% as strong as it is on the surface. An astronaut who weighs 180 pounds on Earth would still weigh about 162 pounds at that altitude. The reason astronauts appear weightless is that they are in a constant state of free fall. The space station and everything inside it are continuously falling toward Earth. However, they are also moving forward at a very high speed, about 17,500 miles per hour, or 28,000 kph. This forward velocity is perfectly matched to the curve of the Earth, so as they fall, the Earth's surface curves away from them at the same rate. They are perpetually falling around the Earth, never getting any closer. This state of continuous free fall is more accurately called microgravity, not zero gravity.
The phrase, "the dark side of the moon," famously used as the title of a Pink Floyd album, has led to the common belief that one side of the moon is permanently shrouded in darkness. This myth arises from a correct observation combined with an incorrect conclusion. The correct observation is that we only ever see one face of the moon from Earth. This is because the moon is tidally locked with our planet, meaning it rotates on its axis in the same amount of time it takes to orbit the Earth, about 27 days. Because its rotation and revolution are synchronized, the same hemisphere always faces us. This has led people to assume that the side we cannot see, the far side, must be permanently dark. However, the far side of the moon is not perpetually dark. Like Earth, the moon is constantly rotating, and as it orbits the sun with us, all parts of its surface experience both day and night. A lunar day is about 2 weeks long, followed by a lunar night of the same length. When we see a new moon from Earth, when the near side is unlit, the far side is fully illuminated by the sun. The more accurate term for the side we cannot see is the far side of the moon, not the dark side. The first images of the far side were captured by the Soviet Luna 3 probe in 1959, revealing a surface covered in craters but with far fewer of the dark plains, Maria, that characterize the near side.
It is a proud and awe-inspiring claim. The Great Wall of China is the only human-made structure visible from the moon with the naked eye. This fact has been repeated in books, trivia games, and popular culture for decades, including in Ripley's Believe It or Not as early as 1932. The myth's origins are surprisingly old, predating space travel by centuries. The English antiquarian William Stukeley wrote in a 1754 letter that the Great Wall may be discerned at the moon. The idea may have been reinforced in the late 19th century by the excitement over the canals of Mars, which suggested that long, thin structures could be seen from vast distances. However, the claim is unequivocally false. No astronaut who has been to the moon has ever reported seeing the Great Wall. To see it from the moon would require eyesight about 17,000 times better than normal human vision. The issue is not the wall's length, but its width. At its widest, it is only about 30 feet, 9 meters across, and it is made of materials that blend in with the surrounding terrain. Seeing the Great Wall from the moon would be equivalent to seeing a human hair from 2 miles away. Even from low Earth orbit, the wall is barely visible, and only under perfect lighting and atmospheric conditions. In contrast, other human-made structures like highways, dams, and large city grids are far more visible from orbit, especially at night when cities light up.
The image of early humans running from a Tyrannosaurus rex is a staple of cartoons, movies, and popular culture, epitomized by shows like The Flintstones. This has led to a surprisingly common misconception that humans and non-avian dinosaurs coexisted. This belief is largely a product of creative fiction and a compressed sense of prehistoric time. For many, the ancient past is a single era where caveman, mammoths, and dinosaurs all roamed together. Creationist viewpoints that posits a young Earth also contribute to this idea by collapsing geological timescales. The scientific evidence from the fossil record is clear and unambiguous. The last of the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct about 66 million years ago, following a catastrophic asteroid impact. The earliest ancestors of the human lineage, the hominins, did not appear until about 6 to 7 million years ago in Africa. This means there is a gap of roughly 60 million years separating the last dinosaurs from the first hominins. It was in fact the extinction of the dinosaurs that created the ecological opportunity for small, rodent-like mammals, our distant ancestors, to emerge from the shadows and eventually diversify into the myriad of forms we see today, including primates and eventually humans.
One of the most persistent and damaging misconceptions about evolution is the idea that humans evolved from the chimpanzees we see today. This leads to the common but flawed anti-evolutionary argument, if we evolved from chimps, why are there still chimps? This misunderstanding stems from a simplification of the evolutionary tree. The statement humans evolved from apes is often misinterpreted to mean modern apes like chimpanzees or gorillas. This creates a false image of a linear, ladder-like progression where one species turns directly into another. The scientific reality is that humans did not evolve from modern chimpanzees. Rather, humans and chimpanzees both evolved from a common ancestor that lived between 6 and 8 million years ago. This last common ancestor was neither a modern human nor a modern chimp, but an extinct ape species, from which our two lineages diverged. A helpful analogy is a family tree. You and your cousins share a common ancestor, your grandparents. You did not evolve from your cousins. You both evolved from the same ancestral source. Similarly, chimpanzees are our closest living relatives in the animal kingdom, sharing about 98.8% of our DNA, but they are our evolutionary cousins, not our ancestors. Both lineages have been evolving independently for millions of years since the split from that common ancestor. For millennia, people have looked to the stars for guidance, believing that the positions of celestial bodies at the time of their birth can determine their personality and destiny. Astrology, which originated in ancient Mesopotamia around the 2nd millennium BCE, remains incredibly popular today, with horoscopes appearing in newspapers and online, and a significant portion of the population believing in its claims. Astrology presents itself with the trappings of science. It uses astronomical charts, makes predictions, and is based on a complex system of rules. Historically, it was intertwined with the science of astronomy. Figures like Johannes Kepler practiced both. This historical connection and its use of scientific-sounding language give it a veneer of credibility. However, when subjected to rigorous scientific testing, astrology consistently fails. Numerous studies have been conducted to test the validity of astrological predictions, and the results are conclusive. Astrology has no predictive power. For example, a famous double-blind test led by physicist Sean Carlson in 1985 had astrologers attempt to match individuals' personality profiles based on a standardized psychological inventory with their natal charts. The astrologers' performance was no better than random chance. Other studies have shown no correlation between zodiac signs and traits like leadership, occupation, or compatibility with partners. The scientific consensus is that astrology is a pseudoscience. Its persistence is due to psychological phenomena like the Barnum effect, where people tend to accept vague and general personality descriptions as uniquely applicable to themselves, and confirmation bias, where they remember the hits and forget the misses.